Good evening. As usual, we'll begin in just a few minutes once folks have gotten a chance to join the Zoom meeting if they're going to. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone who's joined us. I now call this meeting of the Southwood Beach School Board to order. In the absence of Director Jackson, we will actually be turning to a community member, Ms. Davenport, to read our land acknowledgement. Oh, no, I'm sorry, you demurred on that. I couldn't tell. I will be reading our land acknowledgement. Southwood Beach School District would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral homelands originally known as Chicolche in Lushootseed of the Coast Salish peoples, on the lands of the Lower Skagit, Tulalip, Swinomish, Snohomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial and have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this territory and for their enduring care and protection of the land in which we currently occupy and share through the Treaty of Point Elliott, signed by 82 tribes in Mukilteo on January 22nd, 1855. Unlike Director Jackson, I do not have a personalized call to action to go along with this, but I will urge those who feel the calling to deepen your knowledge of the history of this place, how you can, whether it's through local museums or the remembrances of indigenous people, to see what has come before and how that impacts what is happening now and what is going forward. Okay, this will have a public hearing portion of the meeting that is in regards to the budget for the upcoming school year. If you would like to speak on the budget and you are here in person, or if you are here in person, please sign up with Ms. Makara in the back. If you would like to speak on the budget and you are on Zoom, please enter your name and general location in the Q&A function. We will get to comments and statements directly on the budget. And then after that, we will have a public comment period as well for general public comment. Okay. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and minutes as presented? I am actually going to, nope. Okay, seeing none, hearing none, the agenda and minutes are approved as presented. We will now move on to our presentations. We begin with some from Mr. Paul Field, our Director of Finance, the budget presentations. Mr. Field.
We're working on getting it up here. It's throwing us an error message, but we'll get the slide open here shortly. Sure. So, no, the other one first. So I gave the full budget presentation at the last board meeting, and there was a minor change from the end results of that. So overall, here's our revenue and expenditures for each fund. This is called the certification page, showing our beginning and ending fund balance and total revenue and total expenditures. If you go to the second page for me, Christy. So what changed is we spoke before that I plugged into travel, $65,000 for ALE just as a holding place. But in the time from this meeting and last meeting, I actually went in and booked a half FTE and my calculation was $2,900 off of my $6,500 estimate. So that's the only thing it changed. You can see that travel's down $65,000 and salaries and benefits are up those dollar amounts. So that was the only thing it changed from the previous presentation. I'm happy to speak about the previous presentation if there's any questions from that. But at this time, I was advised just to do these 2 pages and field any questions if there were any.
I appreciate you working in advance of our board goals towards brevity and directness, even if they are not yet approved. For those who are following along at home or watching this later, the slides from the workshop agenda that Mr. Field is referencing will be available on the agenda shortly, I'm sure by tomorrow or Friday. Oh, they're already up there. Thank you, Mrs. Macaro. So they are available if you would like to run through them at home, or if there are any questions from the board here that we would like to refer to those. That being said, are there any comments or questions on this? Okay, I appreciate the clarity of the update and the brevity with which it is presented. On to the next point.
So this is the second hearing for the F200 budget extension for the current fiscal year. We added an additional $500,000 of capacity. I still believe that we're not going to have that. We'll see in this month's presentation that we're scheduling or around $200,000. But when I look forward to July, the amount we're going over is just over $100,000. So as we continue to clean up our encumbrances, that overall projection keeps getting closer to our original budget. This just gives us the capacity if we end up going over. The revenue projection, the increase in revenue will stay, just that need for the expenditure is becoming less and less as we approach the end of the year.
Any comments or questions on this one?
Just a clarification on this. Since you last presented the F200, it sounds like the increased revenue is staying where it is, yet our increased need to spend because of the increased enrollment has gone down. So the gap or the cushion, whatever you'd like to call it, of our financial position has improved since then.
Yeah, so when we get to the June presentation, I'll be able to show you on the budget status for June, the amount that it's showing that we're going to go over our budget. And it's a little over $200,000. I ran the same report for July as I'm trying to make sure that we're going to be okay. And it was a little over $100,000 because the encumbrance database is a live database. So it takes a snapshot in June. It's like, this is how many dollars you plan to spend that you haven't spent already. And then as we get to June, the system goes through and releases dollars for POs we've either closed or payroll that we've paid or positions that we've shortened, things of that nature. So that encumbrance and amount going over our budget or the amount we're going to spend keeps getting closer to actual as we approach August 31st.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to add that, for example, we may have a contract for services and it might be for $50,000, but we ended up only spending $30,000, but the encumbrance is for the full amount that we created the contract for. So we wait until the end of the year, make sure that we have exhausted all the resources and that we met all the service needs before we close that out. So this is actually doing our due diligence to make sure that we don't close things too soon. And sometimes we end up spending less, which is a great thing if it's appropriate.
Okay, I have no further questions or comments on this myself, so it sounds like we're all set. Thank you very much, Mr. Field. I sort of presume that we'll be handing this back to Mr. Field for the annual review of policy 6911, bond procedure and compliance. So onward and upward.
So this is just the standard policy for issuing bonds, which we have for the first year, or we did in 2024. It just explains how we monitor the funds through our accounting system and the responsibilities to me to make sure they're spent correctly, and that I will attend trainings to stay up to date on bond work. We have our bond counsel and will through the entire life of the bond, and it's ever more prevalent as we move towards getting ready to sell bonds again in September, the second tranche. It's unchanged from the last time it was presented, but this is just what is required of a municipality to maintain and sell bonds, what we're required to do on the accounting side, and what we can and can't use the funds for.
And I asked you this previously, but I want to ask it here at the public meeting because there might be others with this question. There's a section in there, I think it's the top of the second page, point 2, B1, I think.
Yeah.
That's talking about not more than 10% of the bond funds can be spent on something that involves private trade or business. Could you speak to that and what that means and whether we'll be anywhere near that?
Yeah, responded, and we got a further conversation, and Dr. Clifford happened to be in the office when I got the return call. This is if your municipality was going to build a new office building, and on the first floor there is going to be private lease spaces for restaurants and shops and things like that. Talking to our underwriter, he says the only time he knows districts get in trouble for this is when they lease space on their building for a cell phone tower, because those generate significant revenue. Is like it's highly, highly unlikely for even our lease space at the South Campus that we'd ever run into this. And we're not spending money on the South Campus. We're spending it in the elementary school and at the middle high school. So the spend of the bond, we don't have rental space here. We have the Boys and Girls Club here that use the facility, but not nearly enough to become 10% of the money we spend on this building. So it's just not to use, it's to prevent you from using taxpayer dollars to create revenue generating property is what that's written in there for.
Thank you for running that down and providing even more detail here in person. I appreciate that very much. It was just something that stood out to me, like revenue generating private fund. Okay. So that's sort of what I assume, but the further detail and explanation on that is very much appreciated. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board on this? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Field. I will now suspend the business meeting and we will have a public hearing on the budget for the 2025-26 school year, which means that we are now accepting public comment on the budget in favor of or against specific parts of the budget or on the budget as a whole. This is for comments only on the budget at this time. There is a further public comment section later. Are there any public comments to be made on the budget? Seeing none. Oh. Yep. Yep. Please up to the mic. I'm not certain on that, actually. Yeah.
All right. I was thrilled. I'm gonna look this way. I was thrilled that it went from 700,000-ish down to 5. Thank you. That's awesome. I do have a question in regards to that. I know you're trying to get it to about 100-ish kind of. Is there any forethought in the future so we don't have this juggling act, or anything we can adjust in the budget or kind of look at to see, just so we're not, I mean, I understand this ask is not the end of the world, but in any financial situation, when you start continuing to ask repetitively, it looks like we're not managing our funds well, sometimes from their point of view, even though you've done a fabulous job. And I listened to the whole hour-and-a-half meeting and it looked great. But at the same time, as an institute, we need to be very mindful that we're not continuing to ask for this over and to compare to other districts and say, we're doing great. It still is a negative reflection on us as a community and using taxpayer dollars. So I don't know if there's some adjustments we can do or things we can look at so it's we can have a little extra cushion somewhere else instead of an ask. Other than that, it looked great. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that concern. I will note that in this case, it was because we had the necessity was mainly, and Mr. Field, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, it was mainly because we had more students than budgeted and expected. And so we had to spend more money to provide services for them.
That's the large part of it. And we had some other legal costs that we weren't anticipating. And to answer the question about future years, we increased our revenue capacity and our expenditure capacity, which are just holding buckets from 250 to 500, just to give the additional cushion. But as more dollars come in, we don't want to hold money for students we collect this year for students that are in the following year. So it's a balancing act of trying to nail our enrollment the best we can. And we just had that surprise blip in students this year that generated more revenue.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any comments on our Zoom meeting. We do have a couple people chiming in. So with that, I will close the public hearing and we will resume the business meeting. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda as presented? This is actually the point where I'm going to chime in and have with a mea culpa. I did not communicate well enough with Mrs. Maccaro, and I'm going to request that we pull the 25-26 board calendar off this and into new business so that we can have some discussion amongst the board about that. I do not believe that we need to have a vote on that. That is my understanding, that as long as a board member requests that something comes off the consent agenda, that it does. But to cover our backs, I would like to move that we remove the approval of the 2025-26 board calendar from the consent agenda and move it to new business. Is there any discussion to be had on this? All those in favor of moving the board calendar to new business, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry. Do we have a advisory vote from our student representative? A little late.
Aye.
Thank you. I apologize for that. I'm out of practice too with the summer. The approval of the 25-26 board calendar will be moved to new business. Are there any other objections to approving the consent agenda as presented and amended? Hearing none, the remainder of the consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to public comments. This is our general public comment period, not just in regards to the budget, but opportunity for anyone from the community to chime in. Do we have anyone on the list? Okay, please. And as she's coming up, if there's anyone in the Zoom meeting who would like to make public comment, now is the time to enter your name and location in the Q&A. Hit enter so I know that something's coming, and then start typing your comment. Thank you.
All right, this might be a little longer. I was on vacay last week. Usually I'm always looking forward to being at the budget meetings, so it's the first one I missed in quite a while. I look forward to July. That's when the rubber meets the road, and you did good. Thank you again. So at the meeting that y'all had last week that I was not here, one element you were encouraging community members to advocate for education. I'd like to start, instead of on legislative at Olympia, right here. And so this is not a new ask. This is a ask I've asked many times. I really like to see that SPED Ed committee started up again. Our SPED Ed numbers keep going up. I could totally understand if our numbers weren't going up. Also, in the sense of SPED Ed, there's a lot of changes this last year, good and bad, on the SPED Ed as far as within the school district. So there's a lot of discussion to be had. And it'd be really great if we get some community members, particularly guardians, caregivers, and parents of individuals to kind of have those discussions around some of those changes so there's an understanding and some information. I mean, you can't really know what's going on if you don't know what's going on, right? So that is a huge ask. I know you've probably heard this before. I know we have 3 current active committees, and we had the SPED Ed in the past, and it was great. Tiffany Wheeler from Parent to Parent, I know she does a lot of legislative stuff, and I keep track with her. But I really think we need to also focus here in our actual district as well. And that's an area I think we could really hone in on, get some attention, get some community input, because there's a lot of changes already happening just this last year. All right. The other element I heard in that meeting that was kind of worrisome was the community engagement piece. I know you had spoken that was something we covered in the past, previous years, that meeting. We had a communication specialist come, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And then y'all created that policy to show the public how to interact and communicate. The idea of, instead of doing forums and doing at sports events, at school events. I don't know about you, but when I'm at a school event, my focus is on my kid. If I'm at sports events, my focus is on my student, and I'm usually volunteering at the sports events and track and such. So it's not really a great place, in my opinion, to do community engagement. I mean, it's great to see you guys visible. I totally agree with that. But to engage in the public, most people are focusing on their kiddos because that's kind of the focus. And a lot of our parents are very involved in the sports side of their kids' world. I would really like to have those community conversations. As you know, we've had a few community town halls. There was more than this. And a lot of the reason why people weren't feeling like they could come here and have the same conversation was because of their past experiences that were not positive. So I think the focus maybe temporarily needs to change from venue to how we go about that, how we have those conversations, and do we make people feel heard? And how do we go about doing that if that's not the case? I know Marnie's come to one of the community things and she said, you know, we've covered that. And I heard a lot of kind of checklist answers. We've covered that. We took care of that. Those were goals from last year. You haven't covered that. Because if that was the case, more people would be engaging. Our numbers would be going up more than, 20 students. As he said, 80, going up 50 and then going down 80, I think is the expectation after kindergarten and graduation. I think just from a perspective of where can we improve, that would be an area of improvement, whatever that looks like, connecting with the community. I'd love to see you guys at those sporting events and school events. I think that's great. But I think there needs to be another venue. I don't know what that looks like. I know your Q&As, I think you use the term quiet. I don't know what that looks like. But I also need to kind of encourage you guys to talk about not just where, but how, because that's huge. And the communication specialist that came had a lot of great techniques. And I'd love to see those applied and utilized, because I think that would make a huge improvement as well. Make sure I've covered all this. It was a good meeting. I think that's the biggest thing, is just changing your focus. I'd really, again, encourage you to add that as one of your goals, not just for the super, because she's got a lot on her plate, but also as a board to connect with the community. I know everyone's busy. If I listed all the meetings I went to this week, you guys would be amazed. Commissioners meetings, board meetings, and fair meetings. It's a lot. But we need to make that time because it needs to be a priority. These are our students. This is our district. So we can be that desirable district, but you got to show the effort. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for the comments on Special Education Committee and community engagement. I do not see any other Q&A here. Is there anyone else in the room who's signed up? Okay, that concludes our public comments. We'll move on to new business. We now have 4 items on there because we have moved the board calendar. So the first item is Memorandum 2425-61, approval of resolution number 700, 2025 to 2026 budget. Is there any debate or discussion to be had on this? I feel like we've done a good deal of debating throughout the year on what's coming and what's going on, and also last week or last meeting. Can we have a student representative advisory vote on this memorandum, please?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 2425-61, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. Thank you. Memorandum 2425-62, approval of resolution number 701, budget extension for 2024 to 2025. Is there any debate or discussion to be had on this? Student advisory vote, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Representative Dobmeier. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 2425-62, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. Memorandum 2425-63, approval of the 25-26 board goals. Is there any debate or discussion to be had on this? I expect there will, since most of us, since Director Greenherron took it upon himself, thank you very much for, or not took it upon himself, took the task on of expanding those goals out, and this is our opportunity to discuss those.
Yeah, I made a couple changes. Well, actually, I didn't change the wording of the goals themselves. I added look fors that were SMART goals in nature. And then the other change I made, which is not substantive, but of note to the board, is that I moved the goal about brevity down to number 2 so that we could continue to use the number 2 sign. We wouldn't have to think about what goal number is that. So that did not change the content of the goals, just the ordering.
Actually, the version I'm seeing, is there a different version on the agenda maybe? The version I'm seeing on our Google Drive still has that brevity of communication as 3. So that may not have taken.
Okay.
Um,
Would it be appropriate to create an amendment at this point to get it back to number 2? Or is that more of a clerical thing that can happen without an amendment?
I think just shifting the numbering around is certainly a clerical thing. It looks like Ms. Macaro is on that right now,
Thank you.
in fact. Yeah.
Brooke, would you want me to share my thoughts that I shared with you earlier?
Absolutely. This would be the
Okay.
time to make any changes that we want to.
Okay, so the first goal, I think we could shift the language away from coaching.
Just a second. Just looking through this, it looks like some of the suggestions didn't come through. Christy, let's undo a few. Okay. And we can change the numbering. That's not a problem. So, but you had some substantive.
Yeah, I think shifting the word away from coaching would, I think, honors our superintendent's experience in a different way. And so I think we could change the word to collaboration or partnership, something.
Simply support. Does that cover everything?
Yeah, I think we could just simplify it down to support.
Yeah.
And then the I think that was the only one that I'd still see in there.
I did have a few concerns myself about some of the number of school visits, just because in recognition that this is a volunteer position and we all have different load levels. Maybe a single number for all of us isn't appropriate, but it could just be a personal goal for school visits. And let each of us set our own goal within that.
I agree with that because I think many of us are embedded in schools in different ways
Yeah.
anyway. Either we have students in the school or we're attached in a different direction. And so I think sometimes being there just as a community member as well as a board member is just as important as being there for a formal visit.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, that was my intent. I think there's another goal or another look for that is exactly what you're saying. And my intent was for all of the goals that involve the number of doing things, each board member would choose something that's within their capacity and aims.
Got it. Excellent.
Hey,
Okay.
Brooke,
Yeah.
real quick, when I pull up the board doc, I only see the black text. I don't see any of the edits, but I see all of you all also in there.
Oh, I know why that
I need
is.
more access. And then I can give you the rest of my thoughts because I thought you had already addressed my concerns when I saw only the full
Just a
text.
moment.
That's why I got a little confused. I was like, wait, mine looks different. Sorry.
No.
As you're doing that, I would like to add too that as school board members are making plans to visit schools. If you want to coordinate with me, we can be intentional about going and visiting that schools and classes that might align to the work that are within our board and the district goals. So I would be happy to make that happen.
Our practice, and I believe it's in policy, but it is certainly our practice, is anytime we want to make a school visit, we contact both the superintendent and the building principal before doing so to make sure that we can A, do that, and B, aren't surprising anyone. And that might actually be something that we should take a look at making sure is in policy, but it is certainly in practice with this board.
Okay.
Another thing I heard you say though, Dr. Clifford, is that maybe we could tag team on a visit and go together and do discoveries that way. Thank you for that offer. I appreciate it. I'll take you up on it.
Okay, so now that I see all of the things, I can give the rest of my thoughts. Brooke, I think this also seconds what you just shared, but I don't know that any of us have the capacity to audit a board meeting to determine the % of the meeting time allocated to agenda items that directly impact student outcomes. I think,
Yeah, I would be concerned with whether that is going to impact staffing time, which
Yes.
I do not want to do,
Yep.
or us sitting down and listening
Yeah.
and going through every meeting and saying, this hour-and-a-half meeting was 72 minutes of student directed, and
Yeah.
18 of not.
especially with the irony of the goal being around brevity. So I would say keep it,
So I'd like
Brief.
to try to figure out how we can keep some of the idea of making sure our focus is on student outcomes without having a requirement to specifically audit. So that might be something to discuss.
Just as we did with district goals,
Mhm.
where we voted on a package that included objectives that were set
Mhm.
and key results that were in various stages of either set or TBD. I recommend we could do likewise for something like this, where we create a placeholder goal that allows the board to vote on our intention to follow this and to follow through on it without necessarily having word for word knowing exactly what the
I-
goal will be.
I would also offer that the reason why I proposed coming back to this goal was because I had community feedback that there was a lot of conversation occurring that didn't need to occur. And I feel like we could also just see how community members, how staff members feel in terms of our board meetings and if they feel like it is more focused. And if I feel like as long as we've met that goal, then we're doing what we should be.
I have an idea, but I will share it later because I want to check with our team. But there's ways that we can actually build into our presentations right up front, something about how it's connected to student learning.
Excellent. I might have the short-term solution for each of these items, which is that we amend the memorandum to vote on the top-level goals in this document, and then fill in the details as we continue to discuss them.
That you saying you don't want to hear my last two thoughts?
I think we absolutely should hear those and get them recorded down so we are as close as we can get to the final version.
Okay. Goal number 4, I think that what our policy states is that each committee has the option of having a board member on there. And again, looking at capacity, looking at we are volunteers, and also looking at like it might not be appropriate for a board member to be at a committee, switching it to the option and keeping it in alignment with our policy. And then I think it's dependent on the committee to determine when and where a board member should, if they should, be touching base in on those. Because especially if we are then having the committee share out to the board meetings, that's a lot. Then my last thought. I don't want to wear my name badge all the time when I go out. It makes me unapproachable, and I'm already 6'1".
And I had a midpoint between those two concerns is if we're engaging with the school site as a parent or in our community member role, we do not wear our name tags. But anytime that we are there as a board member,
Yes.
we wear
then
our
we wear our badge.
badges or name tags.
That was that was exactly the intent. It was like I realized legally we are board members 24/7, but that was sort of like the on the air switch where we're like, I am here in my role as a board member.
And where is that one again?
Number 6.
6.
I lied. I had one more thought on number 5. We don't have time to develop an alliance or a coalition.
Quite.
And I also think that that's more of the superintendent's role.
Yeah, I think that our role is to bring possible partnerships to the district and then allow the district to create those engagements as appropriate.
But I wouldn't even say that our role is any different than any community member who calls up Becky and says, hey, I have an
Yes.
idea.
Yes. I
And
agree
so
with that.
honestly, I feel like number 5, the measurable things are not our lane. Those are very clearly district lane. Because if we think of the what versus the how, that is very how. Now, if we wanted to shift it to like state level and we want to do like legislative advocacy, or we want to partner with other school boards, which is where I think the intention of the goal was originally, then that would be that. But this is very, very in the weeds.
Yeah, my intent was the latter. It was the vision I had with that was that the occasional partnerships that we do with neighboring districts or other small districts that are not geographically neighboring turns into something that is more permanent and higher leverage, so that we can create sustained partnerships with those folks. Now, whether or not that is in our board lane and B within our individual and collective capacities, that's another conversation.
I absolutely think that making connections with other boards around the district is within our lane.
I would agree on that.
So if that's the intention of this, I think that the intention is right, but let's get the wording right. And we don't have to do that at this moment,
Agreed.
assuming we get that word just failed me. Change to the motion. Amendment. Ha! The amendment to make the fact that we're voting on the top line items with the look fors to be filled in as we go. Yes, okay. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair interpretation. Yes.
Well, and I think just us naming too, legalities aside, us naming that this is a living document makes this an actual movable and now I'm out of words, but it makes us, it makes it easier for us to amend, to change, to see where we are thriving, to see where we do have gaps or missing pieces, and again, to support Dr. Becky as she continues in her outreach work. And so I like the fact that this is a dynamic piece of work.
Sorry, I'm putting a couple of comments in this document in regards to the intention of the 2 items that we have not actually changed yet, which would be the audit and the alliance.
I'm also taking notes, and I really appreciate the feedback.
And alongside that, trying to keep as brief as possible, I would also like to thank you for the effort that went into creating this so that we have something to discuss.
Very much appreciated, Joe.
Okay. Callahan, do you have, or Representative Dobmeyer, do you have anything to add or discuss on this, since these are things that you can also help us with?
No, I don't think so. It looks great, and I agree with everything that's been said.
Okay, excellent. Any other comments, discussion points? Okay. Representative Dobmeyer, do we have a advisory vote on this memorandum?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving memorandum 2425-63, approval of the board goals, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. And the last item is not an official memorandum. It is because it was moved from the consent agenda to new business, is the approval of the 25-26 school board calendar. And again, I'm going to own the blame on this one. I did not communicate with Mrs. Macaro to discuss what I was what we still needed to discuss, which in my mind, and as Dr. Clifford and I have discussed previously, is number of retreats and purpose of those retreats in particular. Dr. Clifford, do you want to address that in any way, or?
Sure. I just, this is a really high functioning board. And as a new member to the team, and our being a new superintendent board team, I'm learning you and you're learning me. You can probably anticipate each other. But I just want to make sure that we have some opportunities throughout our retreat time. I know that you have standard ways of doing retreat, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to embed some of our work of team development, and if there's an opportunity to do it a little bit earlier, sooner than later, because I want to make sure that if, for example, how we make decisions, if there are certain things that certain topics or certain items that come up in the future before it happens, I want to make sure we're calibrated so that I'm not going rogue or that I'm not engaging you too much. I think that we'll probably be pretty aligned, but I would really love to lean on the WASA resources available and just do some calibration and development as a team, because I want to be as highly functional as you are. I just want to keep just growing and tightening up this team, and I want to be there and show up in the best ways possible for you as a school board and supporting you all and for our district as a whole.
I think that's a great idea. And one thing I've learned in leadership is that when the composition of the team changes, even if it's just one person, it's a new team and the team dynamics are different. And so given that, I would be in favor of a retreat that is focused on, perhaps among other things, team building and building trust as a team, because that's the foundation for a team that can deliver results. And so to add it this year without it becoming part of our recurring calendar, an extra retreat of some sort. And like Dr. Clifford said, sooner in this school year.
So our usual cadence is the November retreat at the WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association Annual Conference. That's very busy. It tends to be during just when we're eating meals and one evening when we get a chance to sit down and actually talk. The January retreat that is often involving, February, often the State of the District School Improvement Plans update. And then the June retreat that is all about superintendent goals. So this would be possibly looking at an additional one to that earlier in the school year to actually sit down and talk about philosophy and things that are on the horizon and we want to work on going forward.
I think we should do team building around swordsmanship, Brooke.
I am happy to, I would love to engage that way. If other folks are actually interested in that, I'm happy to do it.
I think we should go have fun and get
Yeah.
to know each other in a
Yeah.
different way.
Yes, and I think that, sitting in a circle and modeling that culture of care that we're asking everyone in our district to use, our teachers as they start their school year, our admin as they begin their work. I think anytime we can model that and utilize that process, that feels really good to me. And swords.
Maybe the culture of care after the swords, in case we also have to care for any bruises. So with that in mind, that suggests a added retreat sometime in probably October. Because September is exceedingly busy with start of school year. And this would be a retreat that is open to the public, even if it is in a fishbowl capacity where we are doing whatever we're doing and they can watch, simply because of the Open Public Meetings Act requirements. So that suggests something in, in October, we have the October 8th workshop and the October 22nd business meeting where we have school improvement plans. Would it be reasonable to do it because the weekend after that is, or the week after that is the week of Halloween. I'm just trying to think of something after school improvement plans because I know that's a big lift for the administration. And I don't want to add to that. So maybe it's that first week in November.
The other thing, and I'm not opposed to the administration coming, but I also don't, okay.
Yeah, no,
the school
I
administration.
was
Okay.
including you in the
Oh,
administration
I'm
because,
okay with, you don't have to worry about that.
okay.
For me, one thing I'm going to ask is that if we're not completely calibrated and there's something that comes up into September, that we're working together and we're figuring it out and we all have grace with each other. So I would prefer sooner than later. So earlier in October would be great if that works. And if I know when we're doing it, I just plan and organize my timeline around that so that I'm prepared for whatever the meeting looks like.
Then may I suggest that second week in October since, no, sorry, it would be between the 8th and the 22nd. So it would be the 15th of October.
We do have that workshop on the 8th, and sometimes it's okay to stack meetings.
Yeah, we could
So
do that.
perhaps we do the 8th and then we end with our workshop that evening.
Yeah, might be better. In fact, not adding one. So add a retreat before the October 8th workshop. I think that's up to us. I would think just 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. 2 or 3 hours, including a meal. Yeah.
1 o'clock?
That would suggest, yeah, I think 1 o'clock would be fine. Thoughts? Okay. And student board representatives would of course be welcome to that, but it is a school day. So if you would like to attend that, please contact your teachers and principals to confirm that you can.
Will do.
Let's do swords after school's out so they can join us.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Just to clarify.
And I'll borrow some of the padded swords and some of the
Perfect.
masks, and we can play around with that too.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
And this will be in addition to our mid-year and end of year. We had also discussed adding an August workshop next, not this coming August, but the August after that, which is on this calendar. Just to continue that sort of work at the beginning of the school year and to address any big things that come up at the start of the next school year, and that's what it was for, to kick off the strategic planning cycle, to do basically what we did with the superintendent search, where we had the discussion of how we want to do this before we started doing it. So that would be the suggestion for the August workshop next year, not this year. Yes.
That's my birthday. I want Spanakopita pie.
Okay. I think this addresses the issues we talked about with this. Thank you for the grace to hash this out here. Anything else on this discussion? So we will need an amendment. Oh, so sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
Do you have something else on the board goals or board calendar?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. I have a request for the board. The fall Q&A is October 1st, which is a Jewish holiday. And last year, the fall Q&A also fell on a Jewish holiday. And so this will be, if we vote on this as presented, it would be 2 years in a row that I would have to have missed the fall Q&A. I realize early October is extremely busy. And so I totally understand if we're not able to move it. But I wanted to see if we could move it.
Well, it is currently in this calendar, it is TBD. It is in that area. It is not a specific day. on there.
Okay. I must have not looked at the
Yeah.
most recent version of
Yeah.
what we're voting on. Okay. Well, then let's TBD it
Yeah.
and figure out a time that works for the majority of us.
And if that happens in early November, and we had discussed looking at other ways to engage the community, given the low attendance and engagement at those events, to community comment, it might be something where we look at a different format or a different method of engaging with that. But having a fall community forum can still be on their TBD.
One final thing, I don't think we need to add it here, but we do have, I just forwarded you a last minute update that the Snohomish, Snow Isle soup and boards are going to get together on October 23rd for a legislative engagement process. And as it was late breaking, so I just sent it to you. So if we're able to make that, that would be, I know some of us will be able to make that, and I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. And that I don't think that's something that needs to be specifically on there. It will be agendized if more than 2 of us attend, but it's not a regular reoccurring thing or a standard scheduled meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
So we will need an amendment to this to add a retreat on October 8th and a workshop on August 12th.
I'll move to amend
Move to amend.
the date to August 8th and the retreat and the workshop to the 12th
Of August.
of August. October.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have an amendment on the table to add a retreat on October 8th and a workshop on August 12th to the existing calendar. Is there any discussion on this
Absolutely what I said.
amendment? Is there any discussion to be had on this amendment? Okay. Representative Dobmeier, advisory vote on this amendment.
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of amending the currently presented schedule to include a retreat on October 8th before the workshop and a workshop on August 12th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The amendment passes. We now return to the original, now amended calendar. Is there any further discussion to be had on the amended calendar? Okay. Representative Dobmeier, do you have an advisory vote on the amended calendar?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the calendar as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The calendar has been approved as amended. That is the end of our new business. We move on to reports. The first up is the financial and enrollment report. Mr. Field.
No enrollment report because there's no enrollment in July, but we'll jump right into the financial report here. This is our familiar gas meter gauge. So we're 83.33% through the year, 83.4% of our revenue and 83.45% our expenditures. So right in line with where we should be this time of year. Just a reminder, our revenue and expenditures don't come in this straight line. It's kind of a double bell curve for revenue, but we're still trending right where we'd like to be. The next slide here shows with encumbrances. So over encumbered on payroll, under with MSOC. So we're still projecting to spend 100.87% of the budgeted expenditures. And that's why we did that F200 budget extension earlier in the meeting. This is our graphs. We still kind of bounce along. The red line is our expenditures this year, a little bit higher than prior years. But our revenue is laying right on top of prior years. Our revenue is much more predictable and consistent than our expenditures. That's all has to do with timing of events and payment of insurance and things like that, which doesn't always happen in the same month as year over year. But overall, it's pretty close to where it has been. It's just revenue by source and a bar graph. So you can see we get most of our funds from our state general purpose. So state apportionment and then our local property taxes, which is our levy. And expenditures by type. So certificated and classified salaries are there on the left, and then benefits is there in the middle. And that's, again, the largest percentage of our budget is our employee cost. It's the same with every district in the state. Fund balance projected or percentage, we're at 20.6%. This time last year, we're at 20.9%. So right where we've been historically. So this is that fund balance report. So if you look in that lower right-hand corner, that $197,000, that's as of right now with all the encumbrances, how much we would go over our initial budget. And I expect that to stay about the same or slightly less as we move through the year, through August 31st. We do some year-end cleanups that adjust that number up and down. And then as Dr. Clifford spoke to, as we clean up our encumbrances with purchase service agreements that aren't fully exercised by August 31st, that encumbrance number will get smaller and we may get back to our budgeted number. It's difficult to really tease that out because you don't know what every cost is going to be, utilities and otherwise, to that finite of a point. So summary of other funds, there's a little action here that we don't see. So in the debt service fund, you see that $1.1 million payment. That was our first interest payment on our bond sale that went out this month. And then the TBF fund, that $156,000, that was the payment for the electric bus that we made also in June. Other than that, the rest of the funds are bumping along as usual, but those are the two things of note for those other funds in June. Are there any questions?
No questions, just continued appreciation. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is our superintendent's report.
Well, there are a number of really great things that I could share and updates. I know I haven't formally shared with you, and we'll do this in August, my entry plan, but I've drafted some steps. So I've been trying to make sure that I'm doing a lot of engagement. And so first of all, if I go to the next slide, I'm starting with, and I want to make sure that my goals are there. I couldn't get the individual sections under the pillars in there, but just know that those are always standing with me. And then in the next, there's two sections on this that I added. On the next slide, one of the things sometimes people call it one-on-ones when you're doing, I'm calling it meet and greets. And I've been doing a number of meet and greets, started way back in February, but most of this has been happening really in June and July. I was able to meet with each of you in April and May. But you'll see that I've connected with district and district office, district leadership, board, some staff members, some key staff members. There are clearly many more staff members that I need to connect with. And then also a number of our folks that are part of our organization and agency. So the community center, I was able to meet with Diana Sandoval and a number of the equity committee, external equity committee members. And so I'm just making sure that I'm trying to hit and connect with a number of people. You also see that I met with the United Student Leaders. Students are a part of wanting to engage with. So I just wanted to kind of give a highlight of the different groups that I've already met with. Students and parents and community members are next. And part of it is, I think we're going to do, it's not like coffee with principal, but we're going to do coffee with Clifford. But it's going to be slightly different. I don't think it'll be recorded. And we'll do some community parent groups. Actually, Christy and I were talking about having a special ed specific group so that we could, sometimes having some specific topic areas that we really kind of need to get some really important, a lot of ground covered that I know is important to the community. And then student groups. Some other things that I'm doing is also connecting with elected officials, or some are reaching out. So Representative Larson, assistant, just reached out to me a couple days ago. We've already got something set up for Monday, and that is specifically, he wants specifically information around the federal cuts and the impacts. And so we're working on providing that information. And so just making sure that we're on top of things and connecting. And as I'm doing this, I'm building out themes. Not only to identify what is common themes that we have across our different groups of both things that are working and goals, but also what is that next work that is coming, but also using that as some grounding and basis for some information and data for our strategic planning work. So that's the next slide just shows you taking some of that information, and some of those were meet and greets, but then there's been a lot of activity of actual work going on. And so I just wanted to highlight some of those. I'm not actually going to explain it all, but I just wanted to list it. There's a level of detail here that no one really needs to know, but it's important to just make visible. And this is part of you getting to know me and knowing what's happening. So we were able to do some instructional work before the principals went on vacation, tapped into that, planning for some of the work that we're doing next year, connecting with Rose Hughes and looking at the Bayview school property and potential next steps. A lot of hiring and recruiting, and then also really focusing on really partnering with Paul. He's just amazing. And so I've really enjoyed kind of getting to really, as much as I can and as much as he has time for, getting to get familiar with the closing of the budget and making sure that we're shoring up as much as we can. And then as we're developing the budget, how are we really being intentional about alignment with our goals, intentional about anticipating where we may or may not get funds so that we can maintain our work, and just continuing to tighten up our process and taking it to the next level. So those are some highlights. The next thing that I'll share is there's just 4 slides on some pictures I took today of the progress of the bond. That has been such a joy to be a part of this process. And I know that there's been a lot of work before me, and I'm getting to reap some of the benefits, and it's just been really amazing. The team's great. They're working diligent. Anytime they have hiccups, they're coming up with creative solutions and figuring it out. They're communicating with us. I think they're great partners, and we're eventually going to need to do some communication with Start of School about parking and making sure that we stay safe and where students are coming in and entry. So those are some highlights. But the work is happening, and this is something that came through as a very important topic for all students during the interview process. So I hope, even though there's a little bit of displacement and some adjustment period, I think that they're going to be really proud of the outcomes and the progress as we get along and keep doing this. And finally, this weekend, come to the county fair and come to the parade. We're going to be represented, and I think many people will be a part of it. We've got a bus, we've got cheerleaders that are going in the parade, but we've got a bus. They invited us, so we're going to have a few people that are going to be representing the school. And then I know many of us are representing in different areas too. So we're excited to not only be a part of the work in the work and in the schools, but also a part of the community. And I'm loving it here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Since it's summer, we don't have a student board report on there. Is there anything you'd like to add at this time besides yay summer?
No, I don't think so.
Do we have any other board comments or reports? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.